This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 375. I'm your host, Lauren Gray, and yes, our venue has changed once again, but in a good way. I am now back to our home in Cape Coral, which we are quite fortunate to actually have a place to come back to compared to so many others. And we're going through the process of cleaning and salvaging and all that kind of fun stuff. But for those who have been asking, thank you so much for all your cares and prayers and thoughts. And please keep in mind that there are so many people in this area that are so far off differently than us. We've been, like I said, fortunate that we have a place to come back to. Others are still trying to clean out a place to be able to functionally live. A lot of people have lost their ability to their location to live. So tragedies like this, we're not unique to that. There are places all around the world that have these types of things happen, whether it be a hurricane or whether it be a man-made tragedy like what's happening in the Ukraine, or whether it's other things that cause displacements. So always be careful as to being mindful, I should say, as to the support of what we can do. And uniquely as our industry, hospitality, we are the first line when it comes to how we can help in that process. Hotel accommodations, alternative place to stay. We were homeless. I would say homeless. We were displaced for 2 weeks on the East Coast as we were mandatorily evacuated from this area. So for that reason, hotels become homes, and your staff become a surrogate family for a while. And I said I found the secret of great guest reviews for limited service properties is simply change the breakfast menu from one day to the next, and you'll find a huge positive impact to that. It's funny how, as good as the food available is, persistent similar menus create like, oh, gee, okay. You understand why it's happening. And of course, being in the industry, you know even more reasons why it's the same stuff. But it's nice that they go out of the way. We had one hotel that we stayed with. They actually varied their food up. And I know from the logistics side, the cost associated with the different variances in menus and the offering of different menus and so forth for breakfast. And yes, it's an included amenity, and it's not meant to be all of that is a complete replacement to full-scale breakfast operations. But the fact that they were varying the menu the way they were doing was a welcome addition to our stay there for the duration we were there. So anyway, sidebar to that, we want to get to the topic today, which is more about a sense of moving forward to how you do things. We've been talking at great lengths, obviously, about budgets and the preparation of budgets, aggregation of data budgets, the usage of that data for budgets, and now we're in the conclusionary process of our budget season as to the authentication and verification of our proposed budgets for next year. In our time in the past couple of years, there have been huge advancements technology-wise as to methodology of revenue management. There have been some very fundamental changes when it has come to the marketing tools that are available, the uniqueness of them. We've certainly been talking about a variety of tools that will augment things. Our podcast, which I'll be doing another one today as well, and recap of the show plus new tools, is always dedicated to tools, specific tools about specific tasks. We try to keep it in symbiogy to the live show. So what we discuss here on the live show, we get very granular on the podcast as to tools that are in use for those and tools that can satisfy the solutions that we're talking about in the show today. Except for today is a unique conversation that I'm having with myself and you as to the nuances about how we tackle our strategies. We're, as I said, emerging from budget season. We're rolling into holiday season. Weather is transitional at this point. In the north of the United States, and I'm based in Southwest Florida for those who knows, and those who don't, and that's why my reference to the tragedy of Hurricane Ian is so profound, because it landed here. We're in this moment where there is a certainty to our strategies that doesn't normally exist in consistencies through our year. We do have summer consistencies for those that are impacted both negatively and positively. We do have consistencies when it comes to springtime. Those are certain base mark business cycles that, good or bad, do affect the functionality of our operations. Then we get into the less certain components of event-driven and local destination and local interest, and of course your group and efforts and your accumulation of traffic and comps in your market for destination interest. Those start to get a little bit more into the variances, and that is where the skills of marketing come into play. Revenue management can yield according to the data that it has. Sales can strategize as to their capture and ability to quantify and convert groups and RFPs associated with demand coming to market and so forth, based on what brand you're associated with, or if not with a brand, what platforms you're associated with. But the idea of making sure that you are in front of and dialoguing with the volume of transient interest to your market is purely in the wheelhouse of marketing's focus, marketing your department's focus. What are their initiatives and so forth? And this is when you get into our topic today. Very long introduction, 5-minute introduction to our topic. And our topic is pretty straightforward. And that is, are you a problem solver or do you solve problems? It may sound the same. As a matter of fact, when I first thought about titling today's show this way, I was saying, well, how do I create the distinction between the two? Because they sound like simply an inversion, okay? You're flipping words. Problem solver versus solve problems. But in fact, it's really quite different. It's a contrast. It's two sides of the same coin, very different into how things are done, how you do things in your marketing strategies. Let me give examples of both. Think of it as a macro versus micro perspective. If you are a problem, if you solve problems, let's take that one first. If you solve problems, you're given a situation. Our conversions on our campaigns are low, and you are very knowledgeable and very capable of looking at the data, seeing where you're working at looking at a funnel and seeing where the bleed of traffic is that's not being captured and recycled into the conversation that will eventually lead to conversions. You're leaking this traffic. Think of it as ways where we say that your website has a 2% click-through. Well, 90% of the people that go to your website had no interest or did anything that you wanted them to do. They came and left. So you have this huge leak of traffic. And then as you dive into it, you begin to see that they may have looked at this particular page versus another page. They followed a particular piece of content attribution-wise that didn't relate to what they came to on the website. You begin to fix these things. You solve the problem. The problem is we have a large amount of people that are engaging with us, that we spend money to make sure they got to our site, and it's not converting. So let's find our problem solution, okay, as to putting them into the funnel that allows them the opportunity to continue to see us as a viable alternative for their purchase selections. Then let's flip the coin. The comparison to that of a problem solver. Problem solver is the macro version of this. It's not about a single solution, and it's certainly not about a single problem. It may be a problem that instigates the conversation, but a problem solver looks at it from a larger perspective. What are all the influencing factors? Instead of, as we just described, your 98% traffic bleed from your website, maybe an evaluation of who we're trying to drive to the website is potentially contributing to the issue. Obviously, the content on the website is potentially the issue. Obviously, the navigation that we're forcing them through, or their ways of getting to our site, or where the connections we have to the site is the issue. And then the larger perspective of is all of those correct? Are we really targeting the people correctly? Are we forcing them in a direction that isn't related to what they're interested in us on? Is this the channel that we should be focusing on, or is there other channels of productivity that have a better opportunity for us to invest our bandwidth into? That maybe the website is something that it is doing what it's doing, and changing it or solving the individual problem that we were first related to isn't actually the solution we need. We need a larger perspective to what we need to do to change our methodology, change our message, maybe change our voice, maybe change our usages of other channels like social. Maybe we're underutilizing a channel so that we're not getting clarity to the users when they come to our website, which is causing the abandonment. It's a problem solver looks at it from a larger perspective. I say this because we're often confronted with that with our clients. I am. There's a particular issue that is an itch that needs to be scratched. As something that is we find, or they find, or that comes up, that we're looking at going, okay, there's a problem here. And you apply resources to it, and they look at it, and they're very skilled resources. The person's very good at social, or they're very good at paid campaigns, or they're very good at content development. And they focus on it in their perspective as to what they, with their expertise, would think that they should do about that problem. They solve a problem. Okay. They're approaching their skills. I've been told by dear friends of mine that if you go to a surgeon, you'll always get a recommendation for surgery. If you go to any doctor that's a specialist, you're going to get a recommendation from their specialization as to what you should do. And that's very true. The toolkit you bring. Um, that's what you look at. The old adage is if all you have is a hammer, then everything begins to look like a nail. It's very true. When I was running hotels as a GM, I would have my front desk team. Yeah, as you know, front desk teams are the apex center of the universe when it comes to all solutions. There's actually a fun little thing I kept on my wall that talked about the life of a front desk agent and all the things that they're supposed to be able to do, including building additional rooms to the hotel because we're oversold to solve guest issues. So the front desk is kind of the apex of these conversations. And I always told my front desk agents that we're very happy about having solved a guest's issue. I said, that's great. Don't use that solution again. Whatever it was, just don't use it again. And they looked and said, but it worked. And it's like, yeah, it worked. And it'll probably work again. It'll probably work quite a few times, actually. The issue is there'll be a time that problem will come up again, that solution won't work. And you'll have no other alternative, no other tool to create a solution. So while you still have that tool that you know works, that you can go back to now, okay, find another tool, expand your toolkit as to what you do for solutions so that you have other ways to solve the same problem. And what that does is create a very nice, diverse ability to free think the problem beyond the individual aspect of the problem to that of solving the issue of the problem, the larger value of this. So, and now when the same problem occurred to the front desk, they had solution 1, solution 2, solution 3, maybe solution 4 and 5 and 6 for whatever. They had a variety. And eventually, if that didn't fit, this would fit. If that didn't fit, then this would fit. And eventually they would find one. And if they didn't, guess what? Solution number 7 was made. That ability to be adaptive is a problem solver, not solving a problem. That goes into marketing as well. If all you know is your social media, and that is how you approach your social media centric, then your first filter of solution thoughts is social media. How can I change what I'm more fluent in to solve this problem? Here's where it creates the larger problem. It may not be that angle that fixes that problem. It may fix a single aspect of it. It may fix what they're capable of it, but it doesn't solve the whole thing. Uh, it's kind of like a balance of a weight and a scale. If it's not balanced, you put weights on one side, but then there was too much weight, so you end up putting more weight on the other side, which is made too much weight. You're going back and forth, teeter-tottering, because the solution isn't balancing the problem. It's creating, or at least creating, a variance to the problem. You fixed it this way, but now it creates this problem. It's like a whack-a-mole. You fix this, but now this pops up because of it. You fix that, but this picks up because of that. That problem cycle process is based on the idea that you're solving a problem, not being a problem solver. And that comes from diversification. That comes from a variety of perspectives. I was always very happy of my liberal arts education in college compared to having a major in particular. I mean, I had a couple of majors and all this kind of fun stuff. But it really was the idea that as a liberal arts educated person, that you looked at things from a variety of perspectives. I was very frustrated initially at college. Like, why do I have to take philosophy? Why do I have to take psychology? I'm in business. I want to do business. Maybe I should just go to a college that's going to let me focus on business. And there are plenty of colleges that did that. And there are people that graduate from that are incredibly brilliant in business. However, they always approach everything from the same perspective of their education, from a business perspective. They never really thought about the psychology of the people involved or the idea of the rational value of this program. They only looked at it from what they were educated or taught and shown. Again, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The idea that looking at things from a variety of perspectives creates a problem-solving solution. There's lots of platforms that are out there, scrums and all these other things that are related to the utilization of the true effectiveness of each person's strength. But if you get caught up in the fact that Susan over here is always good at X thing. So Susan's always used for the X solution. Susan will never be a Y person or a Z person. Okay. She's always going to be the X person. It defines her. She's brought into the projects because of her expertise. Pun intended. But she's not going to be, if she changes jobs and she's brought to another place, and they might need a Y solution, but she's an X person. And now all of a sudden she's in this rut that this is what she is known and best for. And when I say X, I could say social. When I say X, I could say paid campaigns. When I say X, I could say content, coding, whatever. If you're in that lane. Now, I'm not discouraging expertise. I'm running the pun into the ground. The expertise of this is necessary. And this is where you get into the larger perspective. I want an X person. I want a Y person. I want a Z person. I want an A and B and a C person. I want all this expertise around me so that when a problem comes to us, the problem solution is from all angles. Everybody's perspective is weighed against the other perspective. That's the difference, the fundamental difference between being a problem solver and solving problems. Solving a problem means you're handed a problem, you're going to use what you know to address the issue, this one particular issue. And it may not be a complete solution. You'll do it with whatever skills you have, which is social or paid or whatever. And you'll really try to bend that nail down so that you can't nail it in straight, so you just hammer it down because you have a hammer. Where somebody else might say, that should take a screw, and I have a screwdriver. So yank the nail out, let's put a screw in, because the screw's going to be better than the nail, especially since you had to bang it down because it gets stuck. That idea of diversification, that idea of looking at other ways to solve the problem is problem solving. That's the distinction between the two. The overall perspective versus the singularity of solution, that macro versus micro. We talked about the fact that you need tool variances because if you don't know that these other options exist, then you don't know that they are things to be considered. I think the best example I can think of from a conversation I had with somebody, if you knew how to turn gravity off, lifting heavy objects wouldn't be a problem. You just say, okay, I'm not going to let gravity work on that thing, and I'll just poke it up in the air and float it over to where I want to and then turn gravity back on. But we don't have that option. So it's not in consideration of how to move a big building or a rock or something, okay? We don't have these tools. The idea of the possibility of what things could do, if they're even available, is the option of problem solving. The ability to look at things and say, what really is the reason why our website is doing this or dropping or whatever? And if all you're looking at is the expertise of your social or the expertise of your paid or the expertise of your content, you may not see the solution in front of you. You may not see that has anything to do with it because it may not be the substance of the problem itself or the influencing of the issue that you have. Having the diversification of free thinking from everybody's abilities to look at what they think could contribute to the solution, the successful solution of what it is problem solving. This is why we're bringing it up today. All too often, I'm finding that the politics or the culture of most businesses are based on solving a problem. This is an issue. And first, you go through the dialogue of, well, who's responsible? The politics of blame. Getting that passed as to whoever it may be. Maybe it's an unpin the tail on the donkey's problem. There's a problem that it's not one person's responsibility or one person was the cause of it. It's a problem that came out of what was going on. It's an undefined assignment of responsibility or blame in this case. So then it's like, we got to solve that. That's got to get fixed. We can't have that happen. That's a big old mistake. It has to get fixed. Then we have the culture of, then that's the fixation is, I don't want to get blamed for the problem, especially if I can't solve the problem, because it creates two negatives for me. One, by my efforts, I'm assuming responsibility for the problem, whether it was mine to have or not. And two, not solving the problem means that I'm not only responsible for it, but I'm not good at my job because I didn't actually succeed in creating a solution. both are not correct, but both are in the real world of our culture. Everybody else is, they grabbed the little bag of poop. They're stuck with it. They try to go in and fix stuff. And people learn this early on in their professional careers. Somebody that's very eager to try to apply what they're capable of, apply what they know, or show that they're capable of doing things, are very eager to walk in and try to defuse the bomb. Problem is, they don't know whether to cut the blue wire or the red wire, and the bomb blows up, and they're caught in the blast. I've often said many times that most people at this level of management are into the world of deniable culpability. They are close enough to an event, should it succeed, that they could take credit for. Like, yes, I was there from the very beginning. It was my inception. I was the brilliant person that came up with this. Or far enough away from the blast, they can say, I told you that wasn't going to work, and not get scathed by the damage of its failure. They keep that distance. They don't commit, but then they also don't go over and completely deny. Deniable culpability. This is how, unfortunately, everything is centric. It's centric on a problem that first has to go through the filter of who's going to be blamed should it still be a problem. Then it goes through the process of who's going to get caught holding the bag of poop should it not be able to get fixed by them. Then it goes to the actual, well, we have to give this to somebody to fix because it is still a problem regardless of the process that it's gone through. And then you get into the realm of how well does it get fixed? Because now you're focusing on just a single solution. Then third parties will come in and they say, well, we can do X or Y or Z. Whether it fixes it or not, they have deniable culpability. Say, hey, you told us there was this issue, and we applied our solution that we told you we think it was to this issue, and it obviously isn't the solution to this issue. So therefore, from our discovery, we think it's all these other variables. And now it's spread out like a poison. Now it's in other areas. Now it's like, well, it isn't just this problem. It's your problem, and it's your problem, it's your problem, it's your problem. And now everybody's trying to solve their responsibility to get that hot potato off of them, going, okay, hey, I did my part. It's not my problem. I fixed what I thought was, and everybody thought was my contribution to it. It's off my plate. Let the next person figure out their problem. What that does is it creates a camel out of a horse. Everybody adds their feature, not to solve the problem, but to solve their responsibility potential of the problem. So then the problem gets pushed over to somebody else, but now it has a hump on it. And then they solve their part of the problem, and now it has a long neck on it. And you asked for a horse, but you ended up with some sort of camel. Everybody added their piece to it without the consideration of whether it was the overall perspective of everything or whether it was just a solvent solution that got it off their side of responsibility. That's solving a problem. Problem solving is to take away the blame game. We're not here to find whose fault it is. We're not here to blame somebody should we not know whose fault it was at the very beginning. We're here because there's a situation that needs a resolution. Let's break it down into everyone's expertise as to who knows from their perspective what they think it is. Everybody pipes up. Nobody's wrong. Okay. Somebody can come up and say, I think it's because Neptune's in line with Saturn and that's causing the cosmic disturbances. Okay. Anybody disagree? Everybody disagrees? Okay. That's probably not it. And then we move on. But you don't chastise the person for coming up with a silly answer because that promotes people to continue to contribute. If you keep chastising people or ridiculing them or criticizing them or laughing at them or basically doing the whole bully thing, they're not going to keep coming up with whatever pops in their head of opportunities. They're only going to offer something that is so almost certain that it would be hard to punch holes into. And even then, they could stand on some ground of truth. Some people relish this, and some people think that that is the process of creating a good solution. It isn't. I've been in both circumstances. I've created one circumstance, and I've lived in another. I worked in an organization that meetings were like Shark Tanks. All of the people around the table were my co-working friends. We went and had lunch together and so forth and so on. And I can truly say that once we were out of the meeting room, we went over and said, oh, well, what do you want to grab for lunch? I don't know. We had our business relationships, but in that room, it was Thunderdome. Well, X people enter and only one leaves with the right answer. We were actually pitted against each other to fight for our opinion. And if you went in ill-prepared, if you went in without the backing of data that you needed to justify your position or your solution or your offering or your suggestions, you were chewed up like a Shark Tank. Yeah, it creates solutions. Yes, it creates front edge aggressiveness. Yes, you go in, you know, barrels loaded, okay, because you were going to go in and fight for your position. And it did create solutions. I didn't like that. I like it where it was more of, if anybody's familiar with an old TV series called The West Wing, it was called The Walking Dynamic. When I was running hotels, and we're walking down the back hall, we would have a problem or an issue. And around us was banquet people and front desk people and engineering people and housekeeping people, whatever it was. All of us had our dialogues of what we were doing that day. And here's the situation. We're talking through the problem. And a bellman walks up because he has something he has to get solved. And we're the solution group of the supervisors, whatever, in our little cloud of people walking. So he has to come up and ask the question. But while he's there, he hears what we're currently talking about and offers a solution. Nobody said, "You're a bellman, wait your turn, and we're talking about banquet stuff, and why do you think you even have an opinion?" Nobody said that. On top of it, we paused and listened to every suggestion and then looked at it critically, like, does that hold water? Basically shot at it and see if it still hold water after we all give our best efforts of why it shouldn't. And if it did, we're like, "Good, that's great. That was brilliant. Thank you. And by the way, you're here for something. What is it that you have?" And the same methodology was used for their situation. Here's the issue, everybody's perspective, possible solution. That dynamic created a breeding ground of amazing ideas and amazing teamwork where we literally felt the impossible was just a matter of more time needed. We felt that there was nothing we couldn't do if we just set our minds to it. And it was true. One of the greatest crews I ever got to work with was that way. And I can say that of a second and a third crew. We created that dynamic of everybody was a part of the solution. And that goes back to our crux of our conversation today of the difference between being a problem solver versus solving problems. Solving a problem is what everybody's trying to do. The micro versus the macro version of it is the variance. Problem solving is looking at all aspects of availability of resources and options and ideas approaching the problem. Solving a problem, okay, is about a person's singularity of solution. That person with their skills, their tool or tools, maybe, approaching the problem. As I mentioned in our earlier discussion here, the idea of the politics associated with blame, who's responsible for coming up with it, who gets the credit for the solution, deniable culpability is the reality of the worlds that we work and live in. As a third party resource for my clients, as much as I embed my relationships with them to try to be aware of their strategies, their functionalities, their inner workings, who is good at what, who do I go to for what solution I need, whatever it may be, the reality is that I'm still a third party solution. And I can have the third party objectivity, which I think is an endearment to my clients, where I can look and say, that person is not wearing clothes. That's BS. That is malarkey. And not have the detriment that my payroll check is in doubt. If they truly want to let me go because I told them the truth, then that's the way I want to leave the door, is that I told you what I was going to do, and that is the truth. I'm not harsh or crude or rude about this. I don't actively try to embarrass somebody or degrade their credentials. I just simply go through the process of being a objective, third-party, trusted perspective that says, hey, from what is being said, this is what I think it means from my expertise of diversity. And this goes for everything from other agencies. And I've told them, it's like, look, I'm not trying to bash this other agency's pitch to you because I'm in competition with them. Not at all. I'm here to clarify whatever they're saying in terms of what is to be understood. And if they're better, I acknowledge it. I work in collaboration with agencies where they're very good at certain things that I'm okay at. They have a stronger resource for something than we have. And there's no debt. It's not like, oh, well, I got to shun you completely out of the door so that I can keep the integrity of my client. And on the contrary, it's like, you know what, we should use these people. They're really good at that. And we're only average at that. That rarely ever happens because I have some amazing people I get to work with. But the reality is that some agencies have a perspective on things that you can't replace. For an example, I have a client that their ownership with them on a location wants a local marketing presence. They want somebody that is there. And I said that, as sad as it is and as successful as we have been with you, this constant battle to get localized content for what we're doing is a struggle. And yet these people can produce it themselves. That's a solid reason to use them because they can do what we can't do for the client. The interest of the client is key, making sure that they don't suffer for the fact of, no, no, we have to be your guys or that's it. And then we still have this problem. We can't get localized content. And so because of that, we're denying them something that's actually good for them, because that's my promise to our clients is we're going to do what's best for you. We're always going to tell you what's best for you, whether we're the provider for it or not. It's not a sales pitch conversation we're having. I'm trying to give you some balance and perspective of the politics associated with solving a problem versus being a problem solver. We tout ourselves truly as being problem solvers compared to solving a problem. And that's where you have to look at how you're approaching next year. Now that the budgeting process is to the point of acceptance and affirmation of budgets and so forth and so on, are you looking at a whack-a-mole situation that if you knock a problem down, it creates a different version of it elsewhere? Or are you looking at the overall components of a problem and making sure that by the solution you're implying, it doesn't create an alternative to the problem that just means you have to do the same process over again and again? Definition of insanity: doing the same thing over, expecting a different result. That's what we're trying to solve by the difference of being a problem solver versus solving a problem. All right, so I think I whack-a-mole enough of that. Wanted to focus on the variances of that. Hopefully, didn't go too far off the reservation in dialogue, but it gave you some perspective from your marketing idea as to what you should do approaching now that the budgets are rolling into your expectation of what will happen in 16 days plus from now when 2023 rolls in, as to what you're going to be working and doing. Those things are important in the process of what we're transitioning to and what we're doing for fourth quarter. Fourth quarter is critically important because we do have benchmarks within fourth quarter. We have the holiday season and it has a progression. We're coming up onto the first progression, which is Halloween, followed into November, which will be Thanksgiving, followed into December, which will be Hanukkah and Christmas, followed into New Year's, followed into now January. We have this progression, and there's certain key elements that happen in fourth quarter. Looking at it in a microcosm of a single event is going to create a distortion of how it impacts other things. Look at it in its wholeness as to everything that's going on so that you can begin to create a train. I was watching a fascinating video the other day about resonance. Resonance is where you amplify, say, a sound, boom, and then by hitting it at the right time, you create a resonance to it that amplifies that sound, so that then you keep doing this, and one energy actually adds to the next energy, that resonance that gets created. That is what you're looking to do for fourth quarter. Your initiatives start now, and then just as it begins to taper from the event, you're banging it again with more effort again, so it actually amplifies the energy of the catalyst of the continuity of content, the continuity of market strategy, the continuity of engagement, so that you're rolling into the next event after that, even with more energy and engagement. And then that resonance is amplified again, and it's going into the next effort. And that is a strong progression of what we can do for fourth quarter. So, news item that I did want to bring up out of all of this real quickly. It caught my eye on an article out of Fortune magazine. Mark Zuckerberg admits he missed a social networking trend that led to the TikTok boom. I don't ever strike me that Mark Zuckerberg ever really truly misses he's done anything wrong in life. So that probably was what caught my ear to this, or eye, I should say. He made the comment that he thought TikTok was just a quick video content sharing platform that was going to be a short version of YouTube, was his first perspective of TikTok. And if you don't remember our conversations about TikTok on last week's show and the week before, obviously, TikTok is the number one time spent online, above Google, above Facebook. There's more time spent on TikTok than any other platform, YouTube or anything, okay, which is also Google. But TikTok's it. And what Zuckerberg says that he always felt that social media was about the engagement of the content that's shared by friends and acquaintances. TikTok, however, is about the discovery of content. And that's where he missed the boat. Facebook is based on the interactions that you are asking about and the ones that they think you're interested in because of what you're asking about. Think of Facebook Meta as being much like Amazon. Amazon has that amazing algorithm, which is actually not overly complex, but was the first to use it in such a way that created the buzz about it. Of because you looked at this, you might be interested in this. The ability to define the aspects of correlation between content and another piece of content, okay, is what made that so unique. Facebook tried to follow that pattern by invading all of your data to understand what you were interested in so that they would find more things that you're interested in. What that created was what we called echo bubbles, where you were put into a world where you think that everybody agreed with you because the content that was being put in front of you was what content you were interested in. So you felt you were totally right because of all these other people that felt the same way. You actually felt you were the king of your domain and your perspective, that your perspective was right because, by golly, look at all these people that have the same perspective. That echo bubble has created a lot of issues in our society, a lot of bad issues in our society where people are believing that they are part of a larger audience than what they truly are because it resonates, okay? That what they think gets amplified by being shared more content than is with what they're already doing. That resonance conversation we just had applies to this. TikTok, in the way that Zuckerberg is saying, is about the discovery of content. It's about being exposed to things that you are searching for visually. I can't begin to emphasize enough, and I know I sound like a broken record and I sound like a part of a chorus, really, because there's other people that are saying this, that video medium is the medium you need to be in. You need to be able to visualize your messaging in everything that you're doing. Search engine results with text is a matter of function. It's a matter of time and function, because obviously if you tell me there's a 5-minute video on something and I only have a question to answer once, I'd much rather read the answer, which I can do in less than 5 minutes, than I can watching a 5-minute video trying to find the piece that's applicable. If you've noticed something interesting about YouTube, YouTube now has it that when they answer something there's a choice of videos, it actually markers to the point in the video that addresses the search function that you did. Think about that, how crazy of a value that is. So these shows, obviously, we are on YouTube. We simulcast on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And the transcriptions are created. What I say gets put into words, not always 100% accurate, but close. Those words are then indexed. So then that turns into searchable content. So if I'm looking at how to put a screw into a widget, and there's a video, a 5-minute video, and at 2 minutes and 10 seconds, it talks about putting the screw into the widget, it'll marker the video to that point where that's referred to. And that's where the link that is shared in the search results goes to. So I see a video and say, oh, 5 minutes, but it says at 2 minutes and 10 seconds. And if you click on that, it actually plays the video at the point that is related to my search. That expansion of usage of video is profound. It also addresses a whole new issue for the videos that you're creating as to what you're putting in the tagging of the video. What is happening in the video? And the crazy part of this is, and this is a technique we'll talk about in the podcast, is if you put text on your video, not in the video, but as subtext, that subtext gets indexed. So if you're highlighting specials, promotions, values, prices, proximity to events or whatever, but you put it into the subtitles and then have the audio off where it's just the music and have it as subtitles, that is searchable content. That means that even though you may have a 1.5-minute video, the person is going to search result and your video is going to pop up and it's going to go to the portion of the video that is related to what it is that they were looking for. And that's a huge, powerful thing. But going back to the Zuckerberg thing real quick. So the idea is that TikTok is about discovery. Here's the volatility of that. It doesn't mean that it's truth. You don't find accurate, substantive, validated truth. You find content. So if somebody wants to sit back and talk about everything that they think is right in the world, and you were searching about what it is they were talking about, you're going to find on TikTok that video and any other videos related to that, and you begin to create the same echo bubble that we're condemning Facebook and other social media platforms for, that you begin to feel you're part of a larger audience that you're not. You just found the vein of information that everybody else is agreeing to. The idea that TikTok has this niche to this, because if you were to say 3 years ago, really, I should say, that there is going to be another social media platform, they were already saying there will never be another Facebook. There's nobody that could do what Facebook did again, because there's too much Facebook, there's too much Instagram, there's too much of all these social, Twitter and everything else, there's no more space in the world for another social media platform. Yet here we are with TikTok being the number one time consumption on online. It's something that all of the experts said would never happen, has happened. And nobody ever thought that Facebook would be where it is now, and that is they're diminishing in their followers or their accounts and their paid ad campaign stuff. So much so that now the discussion is coming up about meta search as to whether Zuckerberg took too much of a hard left into VR, okay, and dedicated the fact that this is the world of space. Can he have the funds, because it's bleeding a ton of money right now, for him to be in the VR space? That can he last the 3 to 5 years it's going to take for people to go that direction? Now he has, and the reason why I brought up Zuckerberg in our conversation for today, he has brought up the fact that they just introduced their new Pro version of their Oculus, which is definitively more expensive. It's $1,500, $1,499, which they tout as being, well, that's just about the same as you're doing for an expensive watch or phone, iPhone or what have you. It's true. And for all of us that are geekheads or front edge, bleeding edge, whatever, we're going to probably go into that world to see what it is. But it's meant for business. They're actually discouraging what Oculus 2, which I'm a huge fan of and use regularly and enjoy the heck out of. That it's not a gaming headset. It's not a casual user. It's not an affordable. I mean, right now Oculus goes for $399, which is not cheap. It's an Xbox price, okay, or a PS2 price. The idea that this new headset, which has all the new technology features they've been able to incorporate. Remember, Zuckerberg bought Oculus way back when in the first realm of VR world. Years ago. And it's finally got to the point of autonomy with the Oculus 2. And now there's this business, a smaller, leaner, more usable for long duration kind of thing. It is profoundly pointed to being a business application headset, which Microsoft has been in that space for a very, very long time. They've been used very much into large scale industrial programs and so forth for VR engagements, augmented reality, really, engagements for business. And so Meta is now trying to push into that same space with their headset. Their idea is that this is a computer replacement, that VR will be you carry a headset with you now, a nice little backpack like you do your laptops. And instead of opening up a laptop and working on it this way, instead you'll flip this headset on and you'll have Minority Report view. And it's true. I used the Oculus 2 already this way, where when we were living in hotels, small laptop screen, useful, but not as nice as having larger screens and your typical office space you try to work in. So I would use I used the VR headset to put it on, and then I used the workroom that they had. Actually, I used virtual desktop because I could put more screens up, and I had very much like a Minority Report. I could see my real hotel room around me, so I wasn't banging into things. Okay, but I had big, huge screens in front of me, floating in space, so to speak. And my keyboard, the way the software worked, is I could see my real keyboard and I could see my hands kind of ghosty looking over it because it was allowing the cameras to see it. And I was able to use my keyboard and my laptop while looking at several screens in which I had my browser there, I had my workspace there, I had a much more functional workspace with my headset. Issue is, it's still a big headset, it still gets heavy on your head for a long period of time. And the functionality of seeing your hands look like like a ghost, because it's only black and white cameras on the front of it, and it showed your keyboards and so forth. It still was you had to keep looking down to make sure your fingers were over the right keyboard or keys. Well, now, and you can see your hands. Now with the new Apple, Apple, well, they're going to have one too next year, is what the anticipation is. But with the new MetaSearch headset, this is supposed to be better. It has color cameras. It has more functionality built intentionally to be that business replacement, where yes, I have multiple screens, and yes, I have a keyboard that I can use on any surface, because there's no keyboard at this point. You can add a keyboard, you can carry a keyboard, or you can just have a virtual keyboard that you put your fingers over. That functionality is what they're trying to introduce to. But logistically, is there enough of a market right now? Are people willing to have gotten onto Oculus 2 to go into the new headset, the Pro? For more than three times the amount of the Oculus 2. And even though they said it's not a gaming headset, I would expect that people would anticipate that it could fulfill that function as well. That buy it for business, but you can still use it for gaming as well. It's wait to be seen. It's nothing. They haven't shipped yet. It's pre-ordered now. It's supposed to go out at the end of this month. Um, we'll start getting our first feedback from people like myself as to, is this really cool? Is this what it was supposed to be? Is it everything that we wanted or whatever? Or some people are going to say, you know what? I'm an Apple person. I have my Mac. I have my phone. I have my watch. I'm going to wait see what Apple does, see what they come up with, especially if Apple can work with other platforms that are already in the VR space, like Steam uh, and other Rift, just other platforms that have the games and have the catalyst of people's engagement already on there. And if you're telling me that my Apple, whatever it's going to be, augmented reality, VR reality, works as a computer as well, or works with my computers, works with my watch, or works with my phone, how cool is that? Because I'm going to trust the product base. These are all variations to what's happening in our world. It's going to happen in 2023. We just finished doing budgets for 2023, and well, how is this going to happen in a different world? I've talked many times on the live show about how VR has impacted, uh, but during the pandemic, especially the escapism necessary that I could in VR be in Barcelona and be along the streets in VR. I've talked many times about using the 360 cameras that are only getting better. There's two new versions of the camera that I still use that do 360. And like I said, in times of the show during the pandemic when we were in the full lockdown, taking my old 360 videos of my last trips and translating them into VR and reliving, not in great resolution, mind you, but reliving when I was walking in Utrecht in the Netherlands with my family, and being able to be and look around from the camera's perspective where I wasn't looking before, perhaps. I'm walking straight ahead with this camera stuck on my head on a pole, looking like a dork. Well, now I can be that. If the camera's perspective looked behind me and saw that people were staring at me, I'm wondering what the hell I was doing. I never saw them when I was there in reality, but because I had the chance to look around, I got to see more stuff. That's where we're at with things. So the ability to expose our product in virtual reality, our ability to engage with people in augmented reality, these are all things that are on a process that have not been written into our budgets for 2023, have not been in perspective marketing strategy. So this, going back to our beginning theme of today, being a problem solver versus solving problems, we might look at this and in 2023, we might have a whole different perspective on AR and VR engagement for our products. There's enough of an audience that we should reach. There's a little over 17 million people that are in VR right now that are known because of the headsets that they've purchased. How much of a traveler are they, and how much do they use VR in that decision process? That's an emerging learning process that we're in right now as to what that all is. So the whole idea that Zuckerberg, not only about TikTok, but in general, the usages of video, that even the smartest, most successful people that can truly be the ones that say, I know this because I built this, are still surprised by the fact that what they think and they know aren't exactly what is and has happened. That's a big thing. That video and the usage of video and how video is done is constantly evolving based on the culture as a whole. Next week, I think we're going to get more into the creation of unique content. There is, and we'll talk about this on the podcast next week as well. This week's, well, I already have my topic for this with our tools and so forth. The topic next week I'm going to really get into is AI generated content. I have a program that I'm using that actually I tell it what I want to have in the picture and the style that I want the picture made in, and it produces it. And the really cool part is it is unique. It is literally something that doesn't exist elsewhere, and that I can use it with full copyright capability. And I can do that with music as well. I can say I want this type of music theme. I want it to last this long, and then I can pick what instruments I want to contribute to it, and I can change tempo. I can change lots of functions to it, and it keeps generating all these variations to it. And I can pick the ones that I like, and that's what I use as audio behind my my ads and so forth that I don't have to pay royalty for because I literally made it myself. What's happening now is there's more technology coming out that can produce video this way, that it can take, because if you look at Google Lens, which is really scary, it can look at real images that are not copyright necessity, where you don't need the rights and permissions to it. It's general public information, but you can ensemble video in it. so that you can have, I want people walking through it, and it creates computer. I have other software that I literally can create any face that I want. That's not a real person. And you ask, well, why is that? What would I ever use that for? In the gaming world, in the VR gaming world, you need all the other little NPCs, non-playing characters in the world that aren't real people. All of them have to be different. They can't have the same face or the same gender or whatever. So these programs are born out of the fact that they create these faces and these people so that they can be used in gaming. Well, I'm adapting that to being used for what I do for creating video. I can put people in that are real looking people. I have tools that we talked about in the podcast that I can take somebody and say gender and hair and eyes and all this other stuff, and it really looks like a real person. And I can literally age them on a slide scale from baby to generic, and it ages them, and you're looking and say, oh my gosh, that's like a real person. That is a real person looking. It's amazing, this technology that's coming up. And so I can create this called deep fake stuff. You've all seen it, where you have a person that's talking and the audio was generated. I made it by picking a voice and a gender and an accent. And I made a face that doesn't exist in real world. It's a face that I made and generated. And then I'm making them talk to what I typed in the accent and the verb and the gender that I've chosen. That means I don't have to pay copyright. I'm not trying to fake anybody out. I'm trying to convey a message visually. That doesn't mean that I have to pay $500 or $700 or $900 or $1,000 for copyright, and I certainly have to pay thousands of dollars for actors and actresses to perform that function in the videos that I'm making. I can create all those entities into it with audio, with music, with video, with faces that is generated by my choices, not by having actually created the video itself. Crazy stuff. Anyways, so that's going to be next week's conversation and topic for that. I thank you all for your patience on the changing venues in the back and so forth. Unfortunately, regrettably, one of the losses that we had was our office space through the flooding and so forth. So it is unlikely that even once all things get reconstructed and done, that the background that we had would be the same background we've had for all those years at the office. I did take a picture of it, so I might throw it up as a virtual backspace so we're not dealing with China cabinets and artwork from our trips. For this, but in the entirety of it, I wish everyone well that has been affected by the tragedy that is Ian. And again, thank you for everyone's support and concern and questions as to our well-being through that entire process. Thank you, everyone globally, for following us on whether you were watching us on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Also, most importantly, those people watching us on our TV channel, and it is a TV channel on Roku, Amazon Prime, Google TV, Apple TV, and that is, did I get all of them? I think I got all of them. Yeah, we go. Which is our TV channel, Hospitality Channel. The show's always free on that side. There is a paid wall that's for additional content. For everybody that's joined our hospitalitymarketing.club, they get free access to the TV channel anyway. Thank you everyone that has joined it. For those that may not be familiar with Hospitality Marketing Club, it is a advanced or journeyman and up. It's not a beginners. This isn't where you come to learn what PPC stands for or the basics. There's plenty of people out there teaching basics or trying to teach basics. This is for people that are actively already doing these types of things. They understand the dynamics and the usabilities of the platforms. As a matter of fact, there's a questionnaire and quiz that you have to go through. And if you don't get 90% or above, your invitation isn't sent to you. We only want people in the community that are actively knowledgeable of this space for hospitality, not just marketing in general, hospitality. They have to understand how hospitality works. And if you don't, there's a book I have published, Hospitality for the Non-Hospitality Marketer. It explains how the hospitality industry works, what all the different things are between management ownership versus brand versus independent. Who is a revenue manager? How does that work? What are they responsible for? All that basic stuff that we're familiar with having worked in the industry. I wrote a book about it so that people know how hospitality works. And that's why it's Hospitality for the Non-Hospitality Marketer. Our focus is hospitality marketing. You are doing marketing with digital marketing or media marketing. You're responsible for it. You're functioning on it so that the peer combinations of asking questions about how do you do multi-rotation carousel with 3 different marketing segments with 5 filter variations. How do you build that without having to create the labor to do it? That's where you come and talk and you ask questions. I realized that there was no place that people could ask intelligent questions. Everything was always basic, like, oh, so what is this? And what is that? No, this is for advanced people. So check it out. If you're that person, go to hospitalitymarketing.club, put your name and information there. I'll send you the quiz. And if you pass the quiz, welcome to the club. It's our own social platform. It's not Facebook. It's not a group on Facebook. It's our own social media platform. On there, it's dedicated to simply all us. We have weekly conversations, weekly videos, weekly stuff, training as well. And it's pretty cool. So anyway, enough of the sales pitch for that. Thank you, as always, for the privilege of your time. My name is Lauren Gray, and I look forward to talking to you all again next week for show number 376. Until then, stay safe. Thank you.